Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Torah class. I'm Kiki Newman, and in this week's class we're going to explore the deeper messages of the flood of Noach and how the rainbow can teach us to be a vessel of light.
Growing up as a kid, we love rainbows, and then someone ruins it for you and says, the rainbow means Hashem is mad at you and he's not destroying you, and then then it sucks after that, right? So I always thought about this until a couple of years ago. I heard something amazing about the rainbow. So rainbows are amazing again, which is why we're making these incredible rainbow crafts with Devorah. Can I see yours, Shira? Everyone watching is welcome to do this incredible thing with all items you have at home. You can rip up a tichel like Devorah did. So we're going to learn a little bit more about the deeper reason for a rainbow. So in this week's Parsha, this is the story of the last week's Parsha. Towards the last three psukim, Hashem saw that the people were tremendously evil, and he regretted creating them to begin with. And he said, I will destroy them all. And in this week's Parsha, it says, now there's Noach, but Noach found favor in Hashem's eyes. So Hashem wanted to destroy everybody but Noach. So he said, build an ark to save yourselves. And in the ark, save you and your family on your merit only. And every species besides dinosaurs, all the kosher species that will fit into a teva, and the fish survived, right? At the end, when Noach comes out, Hashem then says to Noach, Pru'uravu, you should multiply, which is already what he mandated to Adam Rishon. Why is he telling him again that you should pru'uravu? So there's a few opinions. One is that they weren't allowed to, men and women were separate on the ark because they weren't even allowed to be in yichud together, because while the rest of the world was suffering and being punished, they weren't allowed to enjoy marital pleasure. So Hashem is saying, now be together again, rejoin yourselves. But that was actually already said in Seim and Ateva. When Hashem instructed Moshe to leave, he said, you and your wife. And when they went in, he said, the men and the women separately. So there's a lot of depth in that idea. So there's a bunch of questions we have. First of all, if Hashem wanted to destroy the world, why did he specifically do it through a flood? And why a flood that lasted 40 days? And why did Noach have to be saved specifically through an ark? There's a lot of ways. Hashem could have made a big fire, and even more simple, even more easy, Hashem could have simply stopped to say the letters the words that continue to continuously create us. We know that we exist by account of Hashem continuously speaking us into existence and saying the letters that right? That's what we learn. Hashem continuously speaks us into existence. So for Hashem to make someone not exist anymore, he only has to stop speaking them into existence. Just stop speaking their words and they'll vanish, poof, and they'll be like they never existed before. Why specifically a flood that lasted 40 days? So we learn, Malbim teaches us this in the Malbim and the Kiyakar, and then Chassidus goes even more deep into this idea. We learn that the world, when the people were evil, the world itself was evil. Not just the people, but the animals, it says, had become evil, but from the people negatively influencing the mabul, the animals, and the land itself was corrupted. The earth itself was corrupted. So Hashem's plan, this is the Medrash says something crazy about the mabul. It says an example of, on the third day of creation, Hashem split the waters in order to make room for dry land. Before that, the entire world was one big giant water bomb, right? It was all covered up with water, and everything was concealed with water. That's the first stage in creation. Then on the third day of creation, it says Hashem split the waters. Yikavu hamayim, which is the word mikvah. Hashem gathered the waters. Mikvah is a gathering of waters in order that there can be dry land, there can be individuality, there can be a world where people get to exist on their own and think for themselves and be separate from me so that we can have a relationship. Then after the Mabul, again, the world was completely covered in water to the point that the word that it says that Hashem destroyed all humanity is Vumachu. We said that Yamach Shemam, right? We say Vumacha, right? It also means to regret and to erase, and it says that they became water. The Varshim say that Macha means that they were erased and vanished, that the people dissolved into the water from the heat or from different opinions. So the people, everything became water again besides the ark inside. And then the third time this will happen, this will never happen again, right? Because Hashem promised with the rainbow that he'll never bring another Mabul. But it does say that when Mashiach comes, the awareness of Hashem will be ever prevalent. Kamayim layam achasim. Have you heard that before?
What?
Okay, so this says, Umala haaretz, da'at Hashem. The world will be filled with the da'at, with an awareness, the knowledge, which really means the awareness, permutation of Hashem. Kamayim layam mechasim. Like the water covers the ocean. That the entire world will be permeated with Hashem's awareness as though the ocean is covering it. So that's the third time that the whole world will be encompassed completely with water. Now, the first thing that comes to my mind is like the womb, right? Because I feel like I just had a baby, even though he's 6 months. It feels like yesterday that the world in its original state was like a womb. We were all part of Hashem. So water covering everything represents oneness, because when you look at the ocean, you don't see the separation of all the species. You just see this entire body of water encompassing everyone as one. When you look around at us in the world, not being surrounded by water, we see separation because air that we breathe by doesn't encompass us all as one, whereas all the creatures of the ocean are encompassed by water that unites them all as one. Now, Hashem, originally the entire existence was one with Hashem, awareness spiritually and physically. The water represented the spiritual state that there was no other but Hashem. But Hashem needed us to be other in order that we can have a relationship with Him, in order to bring Hashem's awareness into mundanity. And real connection only comes when I'm separate than you. If we're connected, we can't connect, right? My baby, once he's inside of me, I can't talk to him, I can't smile at him, we can't relate to one another because he is me, he's part of me. So the birth has to happen in order for this connection to exist. And it says actually that spiritually, the world, we didn't have the ability to have a connection with Hashem, to have any otherness until the third day of creation, when Hashem physically and spiritually made this distinction so that humans can exist. Now the Medrash says that fast forward 20 generations later, and Hashem regretted his decision. He said when everything was encompassed by water, all of the water sang praise to Hashem, which means that all of the water attested to the unity, the oneness of the womb, and the oneness of this like cosmic womb was the unity of Hashem's awareness everywhere. And now that they have the ability to not have this unity, suddenly they're just so destructive. They're killing one another. They're the most corrupt and evil that they could ever be. And Hashem regretted ever giving birth to the world. And Hashem, so the Medrash says, so what did Hashem do? Hashem said, I'll just reverse it by bringing everyone back into my womb. So Hashem said, I'll just bring this whole world back into this awareness and oneness back into my womb. And that's what the Mabul was. But it was temporarily, because afterwards Hashem said, now it's time to leave this womb-like thing and do it the right way. So here's what happened. I mean, this is amazing. So this was the second time Hashem brought us. The Medrash says that it's like someone who the Medrash brings this mashal. It's interesting. I didn't really connect to it. A king who had a palace with only deaf, mute servants who never fought with him and only served him without talking and going against him. And then he started to bring in servants who spoke and who started to have strife and act very evilly. And then he regretted it and sent them all out and brought back only deaf, mute servants. So Hashem said, you're rebelling against me. I want to bring you back into this envelope of the womb. That's what Chassidus teaches, this womb-like existence where everyone becomes water. Now, why 40 days and 40 nights? And why not stay in this womb-like existence forever? So we learned that it was a cleansing of the world, that the Mabul, and Chassidus teaches us, was Hashem dipping the entire world in the mikvah. So the Mabul was literally a giant mikvah dip. Now, the mikvah we learn has to be 40 sa'ah, which is 40 measurements of water, in order that we can submerge. That's the minimum you need it to submerge entirely at once, that all of us is in one with the water at the same time. So the 40, it represents transformation in many ways, right? We have 40 is every time we have this transformation, 40 days for a baby to become a fetus. 40 days first to become a fetus, then 40 weeks of pregnancy also. Okay. Then we have 40 days of Moshe going up to Har Sinai to receive the Torah. We have 40 years in the desert, right? Give me more. We have lots of 40 where we have transformation.
40.
There's one more I think I missed.
Years.
40 years in the desert of transforming to become, right? We said like spiritually receptive to Eretz Yisrael. 40 days of Har Sinai multiple times. Anyways, 40. What?
Wasn't Yonah also in the whale?
Maybe. So 40, we have a number of transformation. And mikvah is a time when we're rebirth, where we go in and we come out completely new. Where one enters the water, for example, a convert. If a convert enters the water as a non-Jew and emerges and has to come out in order to, and he's completely reborn as a Jew. A nida enters the water and emerges as a tohora. Keli, a vessel, enters the water, and with its emergence only, when it comes out, now it's a pure vessel, it's a kosher vessel. So we have this, first of all, we have number 40 as being a number of transformation, and we have water being transformative and stepping into water. And also, Hashem says I didn't bring these words, where he says, I'll sprinkle you, and I'll purify you by sprinkling you with water. So water is purifying. So the Mabul wasn't just a punishment because Hashem wanted to destroy, and Hashem was angry and said, let me destroy everybody because I'm mad at you. Not at all. Hashem said, this isn't working. The way I created the world, it's not working because I'm giving them the world their independence, this freedom to be their own person. But look what happened. Only 20 generations later, and the world is completely corrupted. The animals and the people. I have to restart the world. I have to do it differently. So what Hashem did is put Noach in the teva and saved all of humanity, and then cleansed the world with a giant Mabul, and gave everyone a chance to do tshuva as well, right? So Hashem Noach took 120 years to let everyone else say, join the ark, right? And come into this new world, but no one believed him. But anyone who would have wanted to could have come on the ark with him and done teshuvah and been part of the new rebirth. So Hashem said, scratch that plan, didn't work, so we need to so what did the Mabul accomplish? The earth itself, the land itself was too coarse, was migusham, and I wish I had an English word, was too materialistic, and it was too physical to even be permeated by godliness. There was no ability for the land to become holy and for the people to become godly. And the people were too separate. The earth was too brittle and the land was too rough. And so Hashem said, I'm going to purify the world physically and spiritually in order that the world and the people and everything are more spiritually sensitive through this giant 40-day cosmic dipping of the world in the mikveh. And what emerged afterwards was a similar world, but looked similar, but was completely different. And it says that Noach came out and saw an olam chadash, a new world. What was different was everything was different. And we see this hinted, if you go back at the Parsha now, and please, and look at so many hints of how the world was different when Noach emerged. There's so many beautiful things that you might think are just side things that you notice that everything afterwards was different. From the fact that for the first time, suddenly they're allowed to eat meat. Beforehand, it says that man was too materialistic and coarse. They were on the level of animal. So they didn't have the ability to elevate animal to eat meat. And even then, Hashem said, you can eat meat, but only when the animal is killed properly and not from a live animal, God forbid. And only because when you are on the level high enough to elevate meat. I know people like, I won't mention, embarrass them by name, that only eat meat on Shabbat because they don't feel holy enough to elevate the sparks of meat during the rest of the week. And on Shabbat, we have the extra neshama and the ability to elevate things to a higher level. I have people, right? And I know people who are very careful with their eating of meat because it's a big deal. But now that the world is more refined, we are in a higher level where the world is receptive to godliness. So before the Mabul, that was the first stage of the world becoming mezuchach, which is refined by the Mabul to be able to be receptive of godliness. And this is what's hinted to in the clouds and in the rainbow in a moment. So we see this hinted by the fact that we were allowed to eat meat afterwards. Also, right when Noach comes out of the teva, Hashem says to him, almost verbatim what Hashem told Adam Arishon. Hashem created Adam and Chava and then said, Pru uravu umilu haaretz v'kivshuha. Right? Be fruitful and multiply and fill the world v'kivshuha and conquer it. And Hashem said almost the same words to Noach, but with a slight twist that means everything. He said, Pru uravu umilu es haaretz, and he didn't say the word kivshuha, to conquer the land, because we're in a totally different world right now. Adam Arishon had to attack the land, to overpower the land, to conquer, to work really hard and be aggressive with the land to make it work, because the land was much more physical and coarse, and it wasn't receptive to it wasn't refined like it was afterwards. And now that the land is more refined, Hashem said, you don't need to conquer the land aggressively. Work with the land now. And that's why Noach was Noach was the original creator of the pitchfork, right? He was the one who created forks and pitchforks to begin with, to work with the land, not needing to attack the land and to conquer the land, because the land is now workable. We can work with the land. We don't need to overpower physicality. We also see it by the fish. Also, it said reduba. It says over. Can redu? How do you say that? Lirduba, to overpower the fish. We had to capture fish with overpowering them. We don't need to. Now the world is much more spiritually sensitive and refined. Unfortunately, people do things they shouldn't be doing. And we see, if you look in the Torah, I mean, I could go on and on, but you'll notice so many beautiful nuances of how the world was different and more refined, that Noach saw a new world afterwards, and how he was aware of this tremendous transformation in the land itself, in the animals, and in the people as well. So now that this world before wasn't able to... Let me stop a sec. The rainbow is one of the biggest testaments, and that's why Hashem said that when I promise you that I'll never destroy you again, and the rainbow will be my witness. The rainbow will be the sign for you, and the sign for me to remind me will be my reminder that I will never destroy you again, no matter what you do. So this represents something so powerful. Hashem wasn't saying that you'll be so bad that I'll never destroy you. Hashem is saying I don't have to ever destroy you again, because now there's the power of teshuvah. Now, until now, there was nothing to do. The land was so coarse, the people were so coarse, there was no ability for the land and the people to be permeated properly with godliness. There was no ability for the fusion of spirituality and physicality to connect. But now, I don't have to destroy you. You can do tshuva. You can become better. You can grow. We can work with you. And this is symbolized by the rainbow. Why? Until the Mabul happened, there was never a rainbow seen in the sky, because there wasn't a physical ability for rainbow seen in the sky. So if you know a little bit of science, I'm not a scientist, but a rainbow is created, right, when light from the sun, which is white light, refracts when it splits the light by reflecting off of water droplets, which are scattered water droplets, which reflect the light back to the sun, back to the air, to the atmosphere, and then we see a prism of the rainbow. There's a few reasons why before the Mabul, the land was too coarse, so that there wasn't the ability for a rainbow. First of all, this was brought down by the Malbim. He goes through it. It's really beautiful to read. One is that the clouds, there has to be, there's a lot of, scientifically, there's a lot of things that have to be in place for us to see a rainbow. Not every time that there's water on the ground and the sun in the sky, right? The sun has to be behind you, the clouds have to not be blocking the sun, and the clouds can't be too thick or coarse, and the water droplets have to be able to reflect back light. They have to be able to absorb and reflect back light. Now, first, before the Mabul refine the world. The clouds were too coarse and gray. It says it only rained once in 40 years. And when it did rain, the clouds were so thick and gray, they filled the entire sky. So there was no spiritual refined clouds to move aside to allow the light to be reflected back, to allow the rainbow to be reflected back. But even more than that, the earth didn't absorb and reflect light and godliness. So there wasn't the ability to reflect back if you can't absorb it. If you can't absorb the light first, you can't reflect it back. So people weren't able to absorb the message of Hashem, that Hashem was telling them, please do tshuva. They physically weren't able to absorb that message of light and then reflect it backwards. And the water itself was too coarse, and the earth to absorb the light from the sun and then reflect it backwards. So rainbows never happened. And Hashem says, look, the rainbow is showing you that the world is now more refined. And because the world is refined now to a level where the world itself can reflect godliness and the people can now absorb and do teshuva and reflect back light, that there doesn't need to be another mabul. I'll never destroy the world, because that was a mabul to cleanse the world and bring us to this place where we can absorb spirituality, where the world, we can affect the world as well. So now this is such a powerful message in so many ways. First of all, rainbows, although it does say in the Gemara, I have to say that there was a discussion where someone said he's a tzaddik, and Reb Shimon Bar Yochai said, was there ever a rainbow in your time? And he said, yes. And he said, then you're not the greatest tzaddik, because if there was a tzaddik, Hashem would never even think about destroying the world. So there wouldn't have to be that reminder to Hashem. But it also could be looking at the rainbow, and instead of looking at it and saying, wow, Hashem wants to destroy us, we can look at it and say, wow, the rainbow is reminding me how much I have the ability, and the world has the ability to restart, to do teshuva, and also to be spiritually sensitive. It reminds me how refined I'm a keli, I'm a vessel. My physical body is a vessel for light. That you look at the rainbow, you say, the world is a vessel for light. How much more so my body is a vessel for light. I am a vessel for light. I can reflect light back. The world can reflect light back, and remind us that the world is a good place and that we can work with our surroundings. And if anything seems too tough to work with, anything around us seems like we can't fight it, we have to push it away, we can say, no, the Mabul fixed that already. Everyone is a vessel for absorbing and reflecting light, and everyone can receive light and reflect a rainbow backwards. So it really reminds us of the inherent goodness and spiritual receptiveness of the world that we live in now. And it can give us a lot of hope and a lot of, and also the Zohar one that says, I brought it in your source sheet, right? Did I bring it? The Zohar teaches us that, at least I have it in my source sheet, one should not expect the coming of Mashiach until the rainbow is seen in shining colors. So when we see the rainbow, it means that the Zohar says that Mashiach will be heralded by a rainbow as well, by a glorious rainbow with shining colors. That the Zohar says. So a rainbow is a very good sign as well. It means that we're human, that we make mistakes, that we anger Hashem, that we're flawed. That Hashem regretted things, and Hashem itself was saddened. It's sad if you read the words of the Parsha. But yet we're human, and we also are capable of reflecting back rainbows. We're capable of shining our truest colors, and our brightest colors forward, and that will be the ultimate coming of Mashiach. Now, tying it all together, when Mashiach comes, it says that the world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem, like the waters complete the ocean. Now, this teaches us that the unity that we'll experience when Mashiach comes, we learned that all Mashiach is, the Rebbe taught us that Galus is Gola, and Geula is almost exactly the same thing as Galus with an Aleph added to it. Galus and Geula are literally the same exact thing. Our world is not going to be proof a new world. It's going to look exactly the same, but with an Aleph. An Aleph is awareness of the all-pervasive unity, of the fact that literally we are all united, we are all one. Even though we look around and we seem so separate, we aren't. We are part of one entire body, one entire being. We're all part of the same exact universe and the same creation. And that will be we'll have that full awareness when Mashiach comes, so much so that we'll look around, it will look like we're all covered up by the same ocean. It will look like and feel like we're all under this umbrella in this womb-like thing where we're just siblings in a womb, where we're still distinct. We're not in the water. We have our unique independence, like the month of Cheshvan, where we fall, where we are real. We have real physical lives, like in Cheshvan, that aren't spiritual. We're not just chagim, but in that we have the aleph of awareness that Hashem is involved in every single slither of creation. Every water droplet is a droplet of Hashem. Every person around us is just an extension of us, an extension of our mission. So that awareness will be so much there. That's why there'll be no more war, there'll be no more hunger. Everything, every creation will be filled with this awareness. People, humans, babies, and animals alike will be charged with this awareness of Hashem's presence. So there won't be anything acting against what Hashem's intended it to be for creation. The animals will go along with Hashem's plan. The trees will produce fruit, and we won't have to ever lack for anything. The barks itself will be like as they were. That the barks will be edible, like they were in Gan Eden, right? Will be edible as well. So everything will be exactly as it is, but with the aleph of awareness, which is this idea of the water. So when we see water and rain, we remind us of the water of the mikvah and the waters of being the waters when you unite us and cover us up, they remind us that everything is Hashem and Ein One Milvado. So I bless us all this cheshvan, see speedily in our days the coming of Mashiach and this all awareness, unity, and we can already, just like that person I told you about, Rav Mendel Horadakar, the tzaddik already felt that in his time, hundreds of years ago in Eretz Yisrael, before Mashiach came, we can already experience that togetherness and that oneness and that feeling of Mashiach before Mashiach comes by spreading that awareness and living with that awareness of that one, and starting with the unity between each other and the L'chaim. Thanks for joining.